Alright, I had to let the cats out. They're being just too obnoxious back there, but that means they're free and they're gonna be obnoxious out here, so it's not like it's really any better, but oh well. So continuing on. So remember, now he is going to get in. God, just go away, okay? Just go away. I'm just so tired of cats. I am. I'm serious. I'm honest. I'm tired of having cats. I have had cats for the vast majority of my life, and I'm tired of it. I'm just tired of having cats. Okay, so the choice is going to be, not choice, the context of the next, we're not done with this section of Isaiah. We've kind of reached the climax of this little segment here where he was confronting the king of Ahaz and all the wickedness that he represents. King Ahaz, king of Judah, King Ahaz, and all the wickedness that he represents. We kind of climaxed that little section, but we still have a ways to go before we get on to the next section of Isaiah. We're still talking to Judah and Jerusalem in the context of the Syrio-Ephraim war, which is going on, and the solution that Ahaz has so brilliantly thought of to send to Assyria for help. So we're still talking about that. Now Isaiah is going to start going on now and start rambling into his poems, his prophecies, which is what most of his book is. Last couple of chapters we've had some narrative, and now we're going to go on. He's just going to kind of talk on and on. So we have to keep in mind that we're still talking in the context of Isaiah speaking to the people of Judah at the time when they're being attacked by Syria and Ephraim. And they're sending to Assyria for help. The Lord, so this is Isaiah chapter 9, starting in verse 8. The Lord has sent a message against Jacob. It will fall on Israel, and all the people will know it. Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, so that still exists at this point in time, who say with pride and with arrogance of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with dressed stone. The fig trees have been felled, but we will replace them with cedars. So they've been attacked. Their houses have been knocked down. Their trees have been cut down. Okay, so they're not doing well. They've already suffered loss and defeat. But they're stubbornly clinging to it and just do everything again the same way they had done before. But the Lord has strengthened Rezin's foes against them, and has sped the Assyria, and has spurred their enemies on. Arameans from the east and Philistines from the west have devoured Israel with open mouth. Yet for all this, his anger, so they had more problems than just Assyria. They had other enemies that were attacking them too, of course. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. But the people have not returned to him who struck them, nor have they sought the Lord Almighty. So the Lord will cut off from Israel both head and tail, both palm branch and reed in a single day. The elders and prominent men are the head. The prophets who teach lies are the tail. Those who guide this people mislead them, and those who are guided are led astray. We read about that in both Micah, Amos, and Hosea. The leaders were leading it. Amos spoke mainly to the civic leaders. Hosea spoke mainly to the priests, the religious leaders, and Micah talked to the prophets, the false prophets who told the people whatever they wanted to hear. So that was a problem they were going through, and Isaiah is mentioning it here too now. That was a problem they were suffering at that point in time. Therefore, those who guide this people mislead them, and those who are guided are led astray. Therefore, the Lord will take no pleasure in the young men, nor will he pity the fatherless and widows. For everyone is ungodly and wicked. Every mouth speaks vileness. Yet for all this, his hand is not turned away. His anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. Surely wickedness burns like a fire. It consumes briars and thorns. It sets forth thickets ablaze, so that it rolls upward like a column of smoke. By the wrath of the Lord Almighty, the land will be scorched, and the people will be fuel for the fire. No one will spare his brother. On the right they will devour, but still be hungry. On the left they will eat, but not be satisfied. Each will feed on the flesh of his own offspring. Manasseh will feed on Ephraim, and Ephraim on Manasseh. Together they will turn against Judah. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. That could be a reference to figuratively having problems eating people, which you do in times of siege warfare. And they are going to experience siege warfare. They've experienced it in the past, they're going to experience it in the future. So you could be talking literally about eating your neighbor in siege warfare, or you could be talking figuratively about being so, angry and wicked and set on fire with wickedness, you're just going to turn on anybody. Which, again, we're seeing that happen today, too. Okay, our entire culture is turning against itself because we're so full of wickedness, and that it doesn't take much for that flame to get going once the tinder is ready for it. And we see that play out in our own daily lives today. Woe to those who make unjust laws. Now he's talking about the things that they're doing, that specifically doing that, or causing these problems. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, to deprive the poor of their rights, and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey, and robbing the fatherless. What will you do on the day of reckoning, when disaster comes from afar? To whom will you run for help? Where will you leave your riches? Nothing will remain but to cringe among the captives or fall among the slain. So either killed or captured, nothing else you can beat. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. He's still going to bring the hammer down. I think a lot of, of course, we all know the idea of raising your arm in anger and hitting and striking somebody. But I also think a lot of like Egyptian mural art, where they would often portray their pharaohs with their right arms stretched up high, holding their mace in their hand, about to bring it down and strike a prisoner on the head. That's kind of the imagery that I get in my head. And I think that's the sort of thing that Isaiah is tapping into, because these people would have been familiar with that. And they didn't really produce it themselves in Israel. But that sort of imagery of like a leader raising his arm, bearing a weapon in hand, to bring it down on the head of a captured enemy, that's the sort of thing that I picture Isaiah kind of having in mind here when he talks about this. Woe to the Assyrian, the rod of my anger, in whose hand is the club of my wrath. See, there's that hand club imagery that I talked about. I send him, so woe to the Assyrian. So the Assyrian is going to be doing this, but woe to him too. We're not letting the Assyrian off the hook for doing this stuff. No. I just can't stop it. Just let it happen. I can't stop it. I can't do anything. Just let it happen. I'll clean up the mess after it's made. I can't do anything to stop this. Okay. I send him against a godless nation. I dispatch him against the people who anger me, to seize loot and snatch plunder, to trample them down like mud in the streets. But this is not what he intends. This is not what he has in mind. His purpose is to destroy, to put an end to many nations. Are not my commanders all kings, he says? Has not Calno fared like Carchemish? Is not Hamath like Arpad, and Samaria like Damascus? These are all kingdoms that the Syrian has conquered. As my hand has seized the kingdoms of the idols, shall I not deal with Jerusalem and her images, as I dealt with Samaria and her idols? This is going to be bad. This is just, oh my goodness, this is going to be bad. I can't stop it though. I wish he would get down, but I know you won't. So just do whatever you want to do and then be done with it. When the Lord has finished, so that's what the Assyrian thinks. The Assyrian thinks he's doing all this because of his own greatness and his smarts. He's smarter than everyone else. He's more powerful than everyone else. He's got better strategies, better commanders, more powerful field generals. He's just the best. And all these others are just second rate. They're no good. He can chop them all down and throw them all into the fire. But he's just a club in God's hand. He's just the axe that God is using to fell a tree. When the Lord has finished all his work against Mount Zion and Jerusalem, he will say, I will punish the king of Assyria for the willful pride of his heart and the haughty look in his eyes. For he says, By the strength of my hand I have done this, and by my wisdom, because I have understanding. I removed the boundaries of nations. I plundered their treasures. Like a mighty one, I subdued their kings, or I subdued their mighty kings. As one reaches into a nest, so my hand reached for the wealth of the nations. As men gather eggs, abandoned eggs or just eggs? As men gather abandoned eggs, so I gathered all the countries. Not one flapped a wing or opened its mouth to chirp. So if you want to just go up there and give a bunch of eggs, the eggs can't stop you. The mother bird might try if she gets there in time. But if you get in there, you get those eggs, and there's nothing they can do about it. And he was like that. I just went in there and I got what I wanted, and there's nothing they could do about it. But does the axe raise itself above him who swings it? Or the saw boast against him who wields it? As if a rod were to wield him who lifts it up, or a club brandish him who is not wood. So the tool is not greater than the user of the tool, or the maker of the tool. And all Assyria is a tool. Therefore the Lord Almighty, will send a wasting disease upon his sturdy warriors. That could be a reference to how he destroys them when they siege Jerusalem later on. He could kill them by plague. Possible. Who knows though? It could just be figurative. Under his pomp, a fire will be kindled like a blazing flame. We just read about how much fire can destroy earlier. There's a lot of fire-based imagery in this book too. Isaiah has a lot of the judgment images, a lot of condemnation, and a lot of fire that goes along with it. Because fire is an agent of destruction and judgment. It can also be an agent of cleansing. The light of Israel will become a fire, their Holy One a flame. In a single day it will burn and consume the king of Assyria's, thorns and briars. The splendors of his forests and fertile fields will completely destroy. The fire of his God will completely destroy, as when a sick man wastes away. And the remaining trees of his forests will be so few that a child could write them down. In that day, so in the day to come when Assyria is judged for what it's about to do to Israel and Judah, and the nations in general. Assyria is going to be judged mainly on the basis of its treatment of Judah and Israel, but it's going to be judged also for just being a cruel, wicked, oppressive nation in general. Remember, Jonah didn't like them. Jonah lived almost 100 years earlier at this point. He wanted them to be destroyed even then. Nobody liked Assyria. In fact, the people who hated the Assyrians the most were not even the Israelites. That was probably the Babylonians. Everybody hated Assyria. Nobody likes Assyria. Stop that right now. In that day, the remnant of Israel. Now, when we again, I just want to point out here, when we see stuff like in that day or in those days, that does not mean the end of time. All right, we need to be careful about that because we have a tendency to want to put that context always like at the end of time, and that's not the case here. So in that day, the day that God judges Assyria, the remnant of Israel, the survivors of the house of Jacob, will no longer rely on him who struck them down. But I don't know if that's referring to Assyria as the ones that they wanted to come help, and then he struck them down. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, whatever that is, okay. But they will rely truly on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. A remnant will return. That's Shir Jashub. That's that word again, Shir Jashub. That's the name of Isaiah's first son. A remnant of Jacob will return to the mighty God. Though your people, O Israel, be like the sand by the sea, only a remnant will return. So only a portion of them are going to survive. There's two kinds of remnants. The main remnant in view is the spiritual remnant, which will ultimately result in the Messiah, who will inaugurate this kingdom, the spiritual kingdom on earth. There's also a physical remnant. There are those who are literally physical survivors in the land. And these two groups are distinct. They overlap to some degree, but they're also distinct. Not every physical survivor is a spiritual survivor. Not every spiritual survivor is a physical survivor. Some of them might be both. Okay? A lot of people might have died who weren't survivors, who were neither. Who knows? And a lot of the survivors, it's like, might be one or the other. Some of them might be both. But there's two kinds that we're not talking mainly about the spiritual remnant. But there is also a sense of a physical remnant of just literal physical survivors who don't die. Here, I think we're talking about the spiritual remnant. I mean, there is going to be only a portion of them that survive physically, too. Destruction has been decreed, overwhelming and righteous. Sometimes the destruction of evil is a righteous thing to do. The Lord Almighty, will carry out the destruction decreed upon the whole land. Therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty says. O my people who live in Zion, do not be afraid of the Assyrians, who beat you with a rod, and lift up a club against you as Egypt did, 800 years plus earlier. Very soon my anger against you will end, and my wrath will be directed to their destruction. So tables are going to turn soon enough. The Lord Almighty will lash them with a whip, as when he struck down Midian at the rock of Orb. There's that Midian reference again. And he will raise... Okay, Cat, just keep doing it. Go, okay? And he will raise his staff over the waters as he did in Egypt. So he'll provide a way out for the Israelites. He'll protect them and provide a way out for them. And he'll strike down their enemies. And that day, their burden will be lifted from your shoulders, their yoke from your neck. The yoke will be broken because you have grown so fat, which means will be broken from your shoulders, which means that they have become well fed and they're not going hungry. They enter Elath, they pass through Migron, they store supplies at Michmash. They go over the pass and say, we'll camp tonight at Geba. Ramah trembles, Gibeah of Saul flees. Oh, cry out, O daughter of Galim. Listen, O Lachish. Poor Anathoth. Madmea is in flight. The people of Gebim take cover. This day they halt at Nob. They will shake their fists. There they will shake their fists at the mount of the daughter of Zion, at the hill of Jerusalem. So they're coming close. They're going through the land. I don't know the place where these places are, but they're coming from the land quickly and speedily, straight to Jerusalem. And they will shake their fists at the mount of the daughter of Zion, the hill of Jerusalem. But you see, the Lord Almighty, will lop off the boughs with great power. The lofty trees will be felled. The tall ones will be brought low. He will cut down the forest thickets with an axe. Lebanon will fall before the mighty one. A shoot will come up from the branch of the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. So there's this coming figure again, this deliverer, who's going to save us. The Spirit of the Lord will rest. So the Assyrians are coming, and they're coming quick. They're coming speedily, quickly. They're taking plunder. They're taking captives. They're leaving destruction in their wake, but they're going to be stopped. They're going to be felled. There's going to be a deliverer who's going to come up and stop them. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. The Spirit of wisdom and of understanding. The Spirit of counsel and of power. The Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge on what he sees with his eyes, or decide on what he hears with his ears. But with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give the decisions for the poor of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness will be the sash around his waist. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will leave. There's that child imagery again. This deliverer who will be a child. Or maybe just a child in general. The cow will feed with the bear. Their young will lie down together. And the lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the hole of the cobra. And the young child will put his hand to the viper's nest. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain. For the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Now, this is one of those things that confuses people. Because this has never happened. There has never been a point in time, either in Isaiah's day or in all the 2,700 years since then, where we can look back and say, this has happened. There's never been a point where the wolf and the lamb and the leopard and the calf and the lion and the yearling and the viper and the ox and the cobra all live together, and the child all live together without harming each other. That has never happened in history. So therefore, we think this means this has to happen at the end of time. This is going to happen, or maybe past the end of time even. But that's not the case. That's not the context of this prophecy at all. He's talking about the upcoming Assyrian invasion, and he's promising that they're going to be stopped, and that there's going to be a deliverer. This deliverer doesn't come during the days of the Assyrian invasion, okay? At the time Isaiah is speaking here, the Assyrians are on the march. They're going to come and destroy Israel in a few years. Then a few more years after that, they're going to attack Judah and go after Jerusalem. And they're going to be stopped from getting Jerusalem. That's going to be about 700 BC, 701 BC. But the actual figure he's talking about here in chapter 11, he's talked about before a couple times, doesn't come along for another 700 years. Okay, and even when he does, the kingdom he inaugurates has not yet translated into this happening. Okay. Physically, we do not see wolves and calves and lions and all that living together peacefully in harmony today. It hasn't happened in the physical world. It may someday. I do believe that that creation itself will be restored as part of the redemption, the physical redemption of the world that is to come. But this context, this prophecy, is talking about this deliverer who's going to come and the kingdom that he's going to establish, which is fulfilled in Christ. And the ministry that he established led to the church, which is a spiritual kingdom, not a physical one. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his place of rest will be glorious. In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the remnant that is left of his people from Assyria, from Lower Egypt, from Upper Egypt, from Cush, from Elam, from Babylonia, from Halam, and from the islands of the sea. That's the Mediterranean Sea. They knew about the islands, some of the islands in the sea. They traded with some of them even. So that's what he's talking. So everywhere God's people are, he's going to bring them back. He's going to save them. He will raise a banner for the nations. And Isaiah couldn't think of a place more distant than the islands of the sea. Okay. So we're going to see him use this refer to these islands throughout his book, and that's going to be a reference to the outermost places of the earth. Because in Isaiah's mind, there isn't any more outermost place of the earth than the islands of the Mediterranean Sea. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four quarters of the earth. Ephraim's jealousy will vanish, and Judah's enemies will be cut off, or hostility will be cut off. Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, nor Judah hostile toward Ephraim. They will swoop down the slopes of Philistia to the west. So they're going to be united again. The enmity between the competing kingdoms of Israel will be solved. And they will swoop down the slopes of Philistia to the west. Together they will plunder the people to the east. They will lay hands on Edom and Moab, and the Ammonites will be subject to them. So all of their enemies are going to be defeated by them together. The Lord will dry up the gulf of the Egyptian sea. With a scorching hand, he will sweep his hand over the Euphrates River. He will break it up into 7 streams so that men can cross over in sandals. There will be a highway for the remnant of his people that is left from Assyria, as there was for Israel when they came up from Egypt. So he's talking about God, the Assyrian invasion that's going to happen. It's not going to be the end of the story. It's going to be bad. In fact, he even said a few chapters ago, it's going to be the worst thing that's happened to them since they split apart as a nation. They're going to have a trouble, a time unlike any since Ephraim broke away from Judah. So they're going to have problems. They're going to have big problems, massive problems. But those are not going to be the end of the story. Those problems are going to take away a lot of them. They're going to go from being like the stars of the sky and the sand of the sea to being a remnant, to being a stump. From being a mighty force to being a stump. Okay? So they're going to suffer. And it's going to cost a lot. But this is not going to be the end of the story. There's going to be deliverance, even in the midst of all this suffering. They're going to make a highway for the people to come back to the land, to come back to God. Now, Isaiah's going to talk about this highway metaphor a lot in the book, too. He's basically talking about clearing out roads. And again, these are not literal physical roads. Okay? Some of the people did physically return from exile. Some of that did happen. But we're not talking about a literal physical trip through the highways that we're going to build We're not talking about leveling the mountains and cutting down the trees and actually building a road for people to physically walk down or ride their vehicles down. We're talking about making a path for people to come back to God. Some of them will return from exile physically. A lot of them, the majority of them will not. But whether they're physically in exile in Assyria or Babylon or Elam or anywhere else in the world, their road back to God is going to be made open for them. In that day you will say, I will praise you, O Lord. Although you were angry with me, your anger has turned away and you have comforted me. Surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. With joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation. In that day you will say, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name. Make known among the nations what he has done, and proclaim that his name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, for he has done glorious things. Let this be known to all the world. Shout aloud and sing for joy, people of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel among you. That ends that section of Isaiah. This whole section of Isaiah has dealt with the context of the invasion of Judah by the kingdoms of Aram and Israel, which entered into alliance with each other, primarily for the sake of attacking Assyria, which was going to destroy them all. And they wanted to pressure Judah into joining their alliance, and Judah did not want to, and so they tried to force Judah to do so by attacking them first. And that is what caused Isaiah to send God to King Ahaz and tell him that they're not going to be destroyed by these nations ahead of them. But Ahaz didn't accept God's offer for help, and he went ahead and called for help from Assyria. And Assyria is going to come, and he's going to take out these two nations. He is going to do that. He did do that. So in that sense, he solves Ahaz's problem. But in the so doing, he creates even bigger problems down the road. However, even that, in the end, is not going to be the end of the story. Assyria is going to come. He's going to betray Israel. He's going to attack Israel, devastate, or Judah, I should say, the southern kingdom, devastate Judah, and to a significant degree. Okay, they're going to be. They were like the sand in the sea, the stars in the sky. They're just going to be left as a tiny remnant. They were like the great forest and cedars of Lebanon. There's only going to be left a stump, which is going to grow into a branch. Okay, so this invasion is going to do a lot of damage. But there's going to be a remnant. There's going to be people who survive, physically survive, spiritually survive, and out of those survivors, there will be comfort and refuge and glory to come. So now we're going to put that aside. So that section of Isaiah is finished, and the next section, chapters 13 and 27, are going to be talking about the nations around Israel. I said earlier that Isaiah is focused on the other nations around Israel as well as Israel and Judah themselves. And he is the most internationally oriented of all the prophets. And part of the reason why his book is so long is that he spends a lot of his time talking about other nations. Now, again, everything he says about these nations is spoken in the context of how it affects Judah and Jerusalem. But he is going to address the nations around Judah and Jerusalem and give a lot of prophecies and make a lot of statements about them, too. So that's going to be the next thing. But it's 14 chapters long. So that's going to be probably too much to handle in one day. So we're going to break that up into probably 2 different sessions. But that's going to be the next chunk of Isaiah, 13 and 27, talking about the nations around Israel, or Judah, I should say.